I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about the Patriots setting themselves up for 2019 with a bunch of draft picks. Now, there was a lot of speculation about Bill Belichick's future and whether he was going to retire. Now, a guy that has thoughts about retirement usually doesn't flip a bunch of assets he has this year for next year. That's the kind of move a guy would make if he has plans of sticking around.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people read it. I feel a little differently. I mean, I see what people are saying like that, but I also think Belichick is kind of, as the architect of the Patriots program, I think it's important to him to leave the program in good hands whenever he walks away. It's almost like a college coach who's been there for 30 years, like when Dean Smith was at North Carolina, or like how Coach K will eventually leave Duke. Those guys, they want to make sure that there's a smooth transition. They don't want it to be part of their legacy that, he was short-sighted. He was only looking at the present, and then he kind of screwed them over in the future. So I think from Belichick's perspective, he wants to find the next guy. I mean, I think ideally in his head, like, he would have loved to have had some smooth transition from Brady to Garoppolo at some point, coach Garoppolo for a couple of years, and then call it after that. But it didn't work out that way. I'm sure he wants to have a hand in finding whoever that next quarterback is, and kind of passing the baton on to Josh McDaniels and the next quarterback whenever the time comes.
It's funny you mentioned that a couple good examples in college basketball, because when you said passing the torch from one coach to another and leaving the program in good condition, the first two examples I thought of were Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll, who left their program in shambles.
Maybe that's why I said, that's why I won basketball,
winning a bunch of championships, getting caught in a bunch of recruiting scandals, just like left that place in absolute tire fire, and they've since recovered. But one example I did think of was Florida State when Bobby Bowden retired and Jimbo Fisher took over. There are examples of programs being able to do this sort of thing. At the NFL level, usually the success isn't sustained long enough to have a peaceful baton handed off. Usually, you're in the NFL, you're the hero long enough until you become the villain. I mean, even the Seahawks, like their great run, they're starting to get Pete Carroll and John Schneider out there are starting to get some heat. But Belichick is the exception to this rule, I think.
Yeah, I think that's just, you don't see NFL franchises have this long sustained success. So that's why I think when I mentioned that, it was hard for me to immediately think of an NFL comparison for that. I think that's why I kind of went to college basketball, because you see coaches stick around for 25 years in college hoops, and you see them, you see their programs remain relevant for that entire time. In the NFL, it's, as you said, I mean, the Seahawks are probably the second best team of the past 10 years, and they're, what did they last? Probably 4 or 5 really, really good years, and then they've been okay since. So it's hard to draw a comparison, but I would lump Belichick in with some like legendary college coaches who did it for 25 years, and they want to make sure that their program stays at the top when they leave.